mentioned in the video for the Borski's No Name Shrimp, I was recently asked by a local fly shop to do a class on some bonefish flies. They had a group of people that are heading down to Andros, South Andros, to go pursue some bonefish, and they wanted a class on some productive flies down there. So this is the Bonefish Squimp, and this is the second fly that I did for that class, and the second in the series of flies that I'm doing here on Dressed Irons on those bonefish flies. Very simple pattern. There's not much to it in terms of tying. There's a couple of tricks to get nice full body and make certain that things don't get out of proportion on this fly. But it does have a lot of action in the water. You throw this in the water, it's just going to come to life. But this is the Bonefish Squimp. As I mentioned, this is a tan color. There are other colors and other variations that you can do on this. And there's a lot of interesting variations that other people have done with this fly. But this is the tan version, and this is what we're going to do for our video today. And I'll go ahead and get started. We'll go ahead and get started with our Bonefish Squimp by putting our hook in the vise. This is a Mustad 3407 in a size 4. This is a standard saltwater hook, standard shrimp pattern hook. I'm going to go ahead and debarb that and then attach my thread. For thread, I'm just using a Danville's Flymasters Plus in a tan color. You could certainly use like a 140 Denier on this if you want something a little bit smaller. I'm going to attach my thread right behind the eye of the hook. I'm going to run my thread down to just at the point of the hook. The bead chain eyes that are used in this fly are actually tied further back. They're not right up towards the front, and I tie them in just right off the very point of the hook. I'm using a medium silver bead chain eyes for these. If you need a little bit more weight, you could certainly go with a silver lead dumbbell or something like that. Going to tie those in just right in front of the point of the hook. Your standard crisscross wraps to hold that in. I want to be careful, especially with this larger thread, that I'm not putting too many wraps crisscross on there and bulking that up. And then once those are tied in, I'm going to run my thread back down to the end of the shank. At this point, if you want to, just to secure those thread wraps a little bit, you could put a little bit of head cement on there. Just that's going to soak in there, and it's just going to anchor those down a little bit more. The tail on this is craft fur. I'm just using a tan colored craft fur. I don't need a real thick tail, and it's also not going to be a very long tail. So I'm going to just take a little bit of craft fur off the hide here. And if you watched the video I did in the previous week on the Borski's No Name Shrimp, I went into greater detail on how I'm going to clean the craft fur up, but I don't need all this short stuff in here. So I'm going to hold this about the middle of the fibers here and gently stroke all of those short fibers, or what some people call under fur, out. They're not needed. I am going to set those aside because they make very, very good dubbing. I'm also going to separate some of these very, very long fibers right here from the main bulk of the fibers, so that I can have a little bit shorter tail that is still very full. So once I get those together, I can pull some of these real long ones out. I don't need those, and I'll just have a little bit, not quite as thick as the Borski's No Name Shrimp that I did a while back, but has a nice taper to it. I want to tie this in so it's about a hook length long. That's from in front of the eye of the hook to the bend of the hook. And I want to cut these so that they go right on up to the bead chain eyes. Just fills that gap in a little bit I generally will get a couple, 2-3 wraps in here just to see that my length didn't grow on me there. And if it's correct, then I'll just wrap all those down. As you can see, I have some of those fibers that kind of got crowded up on the bead chain. Wouldn't worry about it because we're going to wrap over all of that in just a moment. Bringing my thread back down a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and tie in some rubber legs. For the rubber legs on this, all I'm doing is taking, I'm using some pumpkin Sili legs with black flakes in them. I'm going to take one full length. I'm going to bring that up underneath the thread, securing that on my side of the hook shank. I'll put a couple of wraps downward to secure that and then bring the other leg over to the other side. Secure those in. I'm going to cut these, but I want them to be longer than the actual tail itself. So these are going to be kind of like other tentacles and or antennae. That pretty much does it for our tail section. Next is the body. Don't need all those wraps in there. Okay, again, you could put a drop of glue on this if you want to, just to secure that in there a little bit. Now for the body on this, I'm using a fine Rayon chenille in a tan. I've seen this tied with many different types of body material. I've seen chenille, I've seen ultra chenille, I've seen rayon or nylon, I've seen dubbing. So, you know, search around, take a look at how other people tie this. You may find that you like certain body material better. But in order to tie this on, normally you would tie this on the back here and then just wrap it forward. But I want to bulk this up a little bit more and have a little bit more control on that. So I'm actually going to bring my thread forward to about an eye length behind the eye of the hook, and that's where I'm going to tie this in, because I find that I can get the right body taper and shape by having this tied in up here and wrap backwards and then bring it forward again. Here I'm just going to start wrapping, touching turns on back. When I get to the dumbbell eyes like this, I'm going to go ahead and wrap across around this side, and then I'm going to keep wrapping on down to the end of the shank. It's only a couple of wraps back here. Then I'll get another wrap in. At this point, I'll go ahead and put in some more crisscross wraps. I cover up all the thread and everything around the dumbbell eyes, or excuse me, the bead chain eyes. Another reason why I didn't worry about those fibers getting pushed up there. But also notice how it gives me a nice bulk right around those eyes. And then I'm going to start wrapping back here, but I'm kind of piling these wraps right up on top, or just tight up against in front of each other, so that it gives me a nice compact tight body, but it gives me it's a little fuller. It looks a little bit better. And then I'll wrap that in. It also gives me just a little bit of a taper, and I'll secure that a good eye length behind the eye of the hook. You don't want to go too forward on this because we have some other materials to tie in, and you can very easily crowd the eye on this fly. So then I will cut the excess off, clean that up just a little bit, make certain my thread is a good eye length behind the eye of the hook right here, because now we're going to tie in some more craft fur, some flash and rubber legs to complete our Bonefish Squimp. So our Bonefish Squimp is almost completed. We've got what would be the tail in, some legs or antennas, tentacles, eyes, and the body in. Now we're going to put some more craft fur in along the back. And again, I'm going to take out, it doesn't have to be super thick. I'm looking for something that's going to flow more than it is at profile. So I'll take out some more craft fur, same process, removing the short fibers in the under fur, as well as getting the longer fibers out and bunched in so that this is not quite so long and tapered. And this gets tied in, and it's going to be pretty much the same length as all the way back to the tail. So this is going to be tied in about that long. Now you'll notice that I turned the hook upside down. Okay, this fly, because of the bead chain eyes, will flip over in the water. So if this is going to be the back of our shrimp and or squid imitation here, because it's kind of a squid shrimp looking fly, we're going to tie this. This will be the upper side to the fly. So I'll measure that, and I'll cut off the excess here, and I'll tie that in right where my thread's hanging, and the butt ends of that should go just right about up to right behind the eye of the hook. Be careful because the thread can kind of slide around on you here, as you can see. You may need to run down to the eye of the hook and come back to secure that in a little bit. Don't worry if this looks like it's getting a little bit bulky. It's going to be fine. We just want to make certain we've got that tied in. Now I'm going to take some flash accent, and I'm going to put some flash accent on both sides. I'm going to take 2 full strands, find the midpoint of those, and bring it up under the thread on one side. A few wraps of thread to anchor that in. Bring the 2 other strands around to the other side, just like that. Here's where you got to be careful to not put too many thread wraps in there, because we're going to have some more on top of it. You don't want to bulk that up too much. I'm going to collect the flash accent, and I'm going to make this a little bit longer, about the same length as the rubber legs in the rear. If those are coming forward on you, you can wet your fingers a little bit to kind of bring those together with the craft fur and get those flowing back a little bit more so that they're more out of your way. Going to tie in some rubber legs, but we're going to put the rubber legs on both sides right here. I'm going to take 1 strand again of my pumpkin Sili legs, and I'm going to cut that strand in half, and then each half is what's going to be tied in on the side. So I'll double this over, cut that in half. I'm going to tie this on the side so that the end here sticks out about an eye length to maybe 2 eye lengths in front of the eye of the hook. I just want that to stick out the front a little bit. Using a little pinch wrap, I'm going to wrap that in 2 or 3 times. I don't want to pull and draw down on that too much, because you can actually cut through the Sili legs. But you'll notice how this kind of plops out. I shouldn't say plops, it actually kind of points outward. It gets compressed right where the thread wraps are, which pushes this out a little bit. That's what we're looking for. I'll do the other one on the opposite side, same length. Set that right up on top, make certain it's the same length as the other one. If it's a little bit longer, you could always trim that off, but I find it's just easier just to take a moment to make certain it's the same. Again, using a little bit of a pinch wrap, I want those wraps right down at the end of the body where I put the end of the craft fur right here. Don't wrap forward, because you don't want these wrapped down there. You want them sticking out like this. Once those are in place, I'll secure those, and then I'll put a 4 or 5 turn whip finish with all of my wraps right on top of the other one, right there, and that's going to keep those legs pointing in a nice outward angled direction. With those tied in, that pretty much completes the Bonefish Squimp. I'll take some head cement and I'll put it on all the thread wraps right here. See how that soaks in real good? I want to just let that soak in. It'll help protect those, so as this is scraping along the bottom and whatnot, it will last a little bit longer. So that is the Bonefish Squimp. A lot of action to this fly. There's a lot kind of going on. Easy to tie. I mean, there's not much in the way of materials and everything, but it does have a lot going on in the water. Even if this is just sitting there, even if you just cast this out and let it sit on the bottom, you got all this craft fur, you got all these rubber legs and everything that are just going to be going all over the place. Now this is a tan Bonefish Squimp. You can tie these in an olive color if you want, or even a cream color. You could put some barring in the tail pieces here, or even in the wing pieces right in here if you want to add a little more contrast to that. But that is the Bonefish Squimp. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video and not only learned a new pattern, but maybe learned some new techniques and a few new skills. If you like this video, please hit that thumbs up button below. You can support Dressed Irons by hitting the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the bell icon so you get notified when new videos are published. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. Until next time, remember, it's fly tying. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong.